Today I'm going to give away a free t-shirt, conclude my Comicology 101 segment on the X-Men, bring you comics news, and reveal the books I bought this week. How y'all doing? I'm Victor, and you are watching a Comic Hero Show. Now kick that intro! Welcome to this week's edition of the Comic Hero Show. I'm your host Victor Nunley, and I am the Comic Hero. The Summer of Superheroes continues, and on this episode, concluding my 60th anniversary celebration of the X-Men, I'm showing some love to Louisiana's favorite mutant, Gambit. Now I'm going to touch base on the character a little later on, but for right now, it's time to give away a free t-shirt. Alright, on last week's episode I asked, what is the name of the group of mutant hunting robots typically depicted as antagonists to the X-Men? Well, the correct answer is Sentinels. And 8 people have answered correctly, and because they've answered correctly, their name's been entered in a drawing for a free tee. And that drawing takes place right now. So the winner of the free tee for this week's episode of the show is... Joy Chadwick from Ruston, Louisiana. So congratulations, Joy. You win yourself a free Comic Hero tee. Alright, here's the question for next week's episode, and this is also an X-Men question. What is the device that's primarily used and worn by Professor X to detect mutants? Now here's some hints. The first hint is that this device was first used in the X-Men number 7 in 1964. And then the second hint, the name of this device is Spanish for brain. Everyone who answers correctly will be entered in a drawing for a free tee on next week's episode of the show. Alright, I'm about to conclude my Comicology 101 segment on the X-Men. And on this one, I'm going to talk about some of the X-Men related teams. In other words, teams outside the core team. So ladies and gentlemen, class is now in session. Welcome back to Comicology 101. This week, I'll conclude with discussing other teams related to the X-Men. The X-Men were formed to protect a world that fears and hates them. Professor X believed in a future where humans and mutants can coexist. Along the way, there were other teams within and abroad from the Xavier Institute for Higher Learning. They all served different purposes and objectives. The first outside the core X-Men team were the New Mutants. This team consisted of younger members and served as the next generation. Notable original members of this team were Cannonball, Sunspot, Mirage, Wolfsbane, and Karma. The next is X-Factor. The original lineup consisted of the original 5 X-Men, but became something more along the way. The team soon became investigators of mutant-related crimes and mysteries. Notable members of the second lineup were Multiple Man, Strong Guy, Polaris, and Havoc. Excalibur was the next team formed and practically had the same objectives as the core X-Men team, but overseas. Notable original members were Shadowcat, Nightcrawler, and Prestige. The next team is X-Force. While the X-Men's objective is to protect a world that fears and hates them, X-Force's objective is to eliminate all threats of the world by any means necessary. Notable original members include Cable, Warpath, Boom Boom, and Maverick. Next is Generation X. Like the New Mutants, they serviced the next generation, but the only difference is they weren't students of Professor X. They were taught by Banshee and Emma Frost at a school in western Massachusetts. Notable members include Synch, Husk, Mondo, Chamber, and M. Lastly are the Marauders. They're also known as the Hellfire Trading Company, which is unlike the original Marauders. That was a team organized by Mr. Sinister to take down the X-Men. This team, however, protected the shores of Krakoa by any threats that may breach the island. Notable members of this group include Kate Pryde, Bishop, Tempo, and Iceman. That's all. I hope you learned a lot about the Merry Mutants this month. Class dismissed. Alright, well, I hope y'all enjoyed all 4 lessons that I did in this Comicsology 101 segment of the X-Men. Now, if you're watching this for the first time, I did the first one on episode 446. So go back and watch that. It's pretty much starting from when the X-Men started out until Marvel discontinued them in 1970. And then lesson 2 talked about their comeback in 1975. And then the last lesson I did on episode 448, I talked about other members of the X-Men that debuted in the 80s and beyond. And on this one, on this one I talked about some of the related teams outside the core team. But I really had a lot of fun with doing this, and I hope y'all enjoyed all 4. Alright, now it's time for Comically Speaking. So without further ado, let's talk comics! Alright, there are 2 things I'm going to talk about in this segment of Comically Speaking, and here's the first. Now, this past week, it's been revealed as to who is going to play Superman and Lois Lane in the upcoming DC Studios film, Superman Legacy. Playing Superman and Clark Kent will be David Corenswet, and playing Lois Lane will be Rachel Brosnahan. Now, I'm going to get to Corenswet in a minute, but Rachel Brosnahan, for those of y'all who are unfamiliar with her, she starred on the Amazon Prime series, The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel. And she was awesome on that show, and there's really no doubt that she's really going to deliver as Lois Lane in this movie, and then also in any other projects that DC Studios may be doing. So congratulations to her, and I know she's going to do well. Now, as far as David Corenswet goes, I'm not all that familiar with him. As a matter of fact, I have never watched anything that he's ever been. As a matter of fact, I've honestly never heard of him. But I did some research on him, and I found out that he's actually starred on a lot of shows like House of Cards, The Politicians, and then the HBO series We Run the City. And so for the most part, unless you've seen any of those shows, he's practically a relatively unknown actor. Now, here's the thing. That's not the first time that a relatively known actor has been casted to play Superman. Christopher Reeve was a relatively unknown actor, and we all know what he did. He's been deceased for nearly 20 years, but to this day, he still embodies everything about Superman. And not only that, Corenswet and Reeve are both were both loyal to the same college, and I'm talking about Juilliard. So I'm not going to pass judgment on them. I know there are quite a few folks that have passed judgment on them already, but you know, we did that same thing when Michael Keaton was casted as Batman. We did the same thing when Heath Ledger was casted as the Joker, or Robert Downey Jr. as Iron Man, or that's the one thing that's the thing, folks. We pass judgment on things only because they're not what we see, or they're not what we agree with. But you may want to pump the brakes, because I don't know. He may blow us away. He may not. But hopefully he will. But in addition to Superman Legacy, they're also going to appear on other DC Studios projects, whether they're on the big screen or the small screen. So, definitely. Alright, now the second thing has absolutely nothing to do with comic book news, but it's comic book related. And this is something that's been on my mind for the last few days. Okay, if you have, or if you work at an independent comic book label, and if you have a book that's out and hardly no one has bought, I want to buy your book. I want to read your book. I want to collect your book. The comic book industry is a very tough industry to be in, especially for those that write and draw the books. But I want to add some relief to that. I want to do business with you. I want to read your book. Now, I've already am a fan, already all in with other independent labels like Risen Vision Studios and Dark Atom Comics, but I want to do so much more. I don't want to stop there. I mean, yeah, don't get me wrong. I don't have anything against DC, Marvel, IDW, or Image. Great publications. But I should be reading more. I shouldn't limit myself to certain publications. I mean, there are a lot of great independent labels. And, it took me a long time to finally understand it. There are some labels that are a lot more exciting than some of the stuff that you read in DC and Marvel. And, they're barely making ends meet. They're barely keeping their head above water. And I want to be, and what I want to do is I want to give them the exposure. I want to give them the business that they totally deserve. And also, to anyone that's watching this that reads comics, I want you to do the same thing. If there's an independent label anywhere across the country that hardly no one's ever heard of, support them. Be all in. And that's what I want to do. And again, I'm encouraging just about any other comic book reader and collector to do the same. I mean, there's a whole world full of creativity, and a lot of them don't work for publications like DC, Marvel, IDW, or Image. So if you're watching this and you have an independent label, near or far, I want to buy, read, and collect your book. And I know my friends Lisa and Brant Fowler from Lindale, Texas are talking. By the way, they have an independent label called Last Ember Press. Check it out. I will be contacting you, and I'm all in. Just something I'd throw out there. All right, that's it for Comically Speaking. Let's get to the comics I bought this week. Comic books I bought this week. All right, here we go. First up is the Avengers #2. Batman Superman World's Finest #16. Black Adam #12. Carnage #13. Carnage #14. Catwoman #56. Cyborg #2. Edge of Spider-Verse #3. I Am Iron Man #4. Really excited about this book. The Incredible Hulk #1. Miles Morales Spider-Man number 7. Superboy, the Man of Tomorrow, number 3. Superman, number 5. Titans, number 2. Really excited about this book. Ultimate Invasion number 1. Oh, check it out. Double cover. Venom number 21. Wonder Woman number 800. And finally, X-Force number 44. Alright, that's 18, which brings the total number of comics I've bought since December of 1997 to 12,157. Alright, well, I hope y'all enjoyed this week's episode. Here's a question again for a free tee for next week's episode of the show. What is the device that's primarily used and worn by Professor X to detect mutants? Although, granted, he only used it for a time, he didn't always wear it. He didn't wear it until, well, recently. But here are the hints. The first hint is that this device was first used in the X-Men number 7 in 1964. The second hint, the name of this device is Spanish for brain. And here's the third hint. That, right there, that's the device. Alright, everyone who answers correctly will be entered in a drawing for a free tee on next week's episode of the show. And congratulations to Joy Chadwick from Ruston, Louisiana, who won a free tee on this episode. Alright, now the character that I'm showing some love to on this episode is none other than Gambit. Now, Gambit's real name is Remy LeBeau, and he made his first appearance in the Uncanny X-Men number 266 in 1990 and was created by Chris Claremont and Jim Lee. Now, these two are no stranger to the X-Men. As a matter of fact, they would go on to create the X-Men series in 1991, which to this day is still regarded as one of the greatest books ever. The first issue of this book is one of the greatest all-time books ever sold. And Gambit's mutant power is transferring telekinetic energies to other objects and causing them to explode. Or better yet, he can, if you've seen what he can do, he can transfer telekinetic energy to some cards and use them as weapons. And on contact, they explode. I mean, but he can do that with just about anything. And also, he can charge himself up. He also possesses static generation, and he is a novice stick fighter and martial artist. And he's also married to Rogue. I mean, one thing about these two, they're the polar opposite of the song by Loretta Lynn and Conway Twitty. You know, the song called Louisiana Woman, Mississippi Man. Well, it's, in this case, it's Mississippi Woman, Louisiana Man. But anyway, really love this character, and I really love celebrating the X-Men all month long. And which brings me to the road ahead for the show. On the next episode, which is the 450th episode, I'm going to show some love to one of the characters that took on the mantle of Superman after the original was presumed dead, and I'm talking about Steel. Now, Steel's real name is Dr. John Henry Irons, and he is the founder and CEO of Steelworks in Metropolis. Now, he's also been played on the big screen by Shaquille O'Neal in a very, very bad movie. And then on the small screen, he's been played by Wole Parks on Superman Lois, and then voiced in animation in both Superman the Animated Series and Justice League Unlimited by Michael Dorn. And all month long, as part of the 30th anniversary of the reign of the Superman and the return of Superman, I'm going to show some love to Steel, the Cyborg Superman, Superboy, and then I'm going to wear a comic hero tee that's kind of similar to the black costume that Superman wore after he was brought back from the dead. So tune into those. All right, and also meet me at the Shreveport Convention Center, August the 18th through the 20th. That's the site of GeekCon 2023. I'll be a vendor there. I'll be there all 3 days, and I'm looking forward to seeing some of y'all that I know and meeting some new people, and also selling some merch. I'm going to sell the default comic hero tee, and I'm also going to sell some cups, hats, autograph, some prints, and then some other stuff. Also Comic Hero charcoal soap. All these you can find right now on my website, imthecomichero.com/shop. All right. If you're watching this for the first time on YouTube, welcome. And as soon as you're done, hit subscribe. And if you're watching this for the first time on the Comic Book Lovers Facebook page, welcome. And as soon as you're done, go on YouTube and hit subscribe. All right, I'm Victor Nunley on the Comic Hero. I'll see you next week for the 450th episode. So until then, be safe, be blessed, be a hero.